My name is Michael Grayson, and for most of my marriage, I believed I was one of the lucky ones. Amanda, my wife of 7 years, was everything a man could want, or so I thought. She was intelligent, charming, and carried herself with a confidence that turned heads wherever we went. People envied us. Friends would comment on how perfect we looked together, and I foolishly soaked it all in. But looking back now, I see the cracks that had always been there, hidden behind her dazzling smile. In those early years, Amanda was attentive, affectionate, and full of passion. She made me feel like the center of her universe, and I worked tirelessly to keep her happy. I built a life for us, a beautiful house in suburban Illinois, a stable job as an architect, and countless small moments of love and care that I thought would keep our bond unbreakable. Then something changed. It wasn't overnight. It was gradual, like the slow drip of water carving away at stone. At first, it was her distance, the way her laughter became less genuine, her touch more absent. She'd spend hours on her phone, texting someone she claimed was just a friend. I wanted to believe her. Trust was the foundation of our marriage, wasn't it? I convinced myself it was a phase. I told myself she was stressed, tired, or maybe even bored. I tried harder to rekindle the spark: romantic dinners, surprise getaways, and heartfelt conversations. But no matter what I did, she seemed further away. The moment that shattered my blind faith came one evening after dinner. We were sitting in the living room, and I brought up how I felt about the growing distance between us. She didn't even look up from her phone when she replied, "Michael, I'm just not interested in intimacy anymore. You'll have to deal with it." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Intimacy wasn't just physical. It was connection, trust, love. And now she was telling me to deal with it? My instincts screamed at me that there was more to this, but I pushed the thought aside. I didn't want to believe the woman I loved could betray me. But that night, lying in bed beside her as she scrolled through her phone with a smirk I hadn't seen in years, I knew something was deeply wrong. I didn't sleep at all. The next day, I made a decision. If she wasn't going to tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. Amanda's words haunted me for days. "You'll have to deal with it." How casually she dismissed something so vital to our relationship. I wanted to confront her, demand answers, but every time I looked into her eyes, I felt a mixture of love and fear. Fear of what I might uncover if I pushed too hard. At first, I tried to rationalize her behavior. Maybe she was going through something she hadn't shared with me. Work stress? Hormonal changes? I even blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't doing enough. I doubled down on being a supportive husband, cooking her favorite meals, doing more around the house, and even offering to book a couple's retreat. Her response? A polite but detached, "That's nice, Michael. Maybe later." Her apathy stung. But it wasn't until I noticed her newfound obsession with her appearance that the first real alarm bells went off. Amanda had always taken care of herself, but this was different. She was suddenly spending hours at the gym, buying expensive lingerie she never wore around me, and taking selfies with angles and lighting that screamed performative. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table, I casually asked, "You've been going to the gym a lot lately. New year, new goals." She smirked, her fork pausing midair. Something like that. "It's good to feel attractive again." Attractive for who? The thought flashed through my mind, unbidden and unwanted. But I laughed it off, pretending not to notice the way her phone buzzed incessantly during dinner. She always turned it face down when I was around. My suspicion grew when I found her calendar marked with work dinners she never mentioned before. One Friday evening, she dressed in a sleek black dress that hugged her figure in ways that made me remember why I fell for her. I told her she looked stunning, but her reaction was cold. "Thanks," she said, barely meeting my gaze. She left that night, and I sat alone in the living room, the silence suffocating. Later, I couldn't resist the urge to check her social media. Nothing seemed out of place. She was careful, calculated. But there were hints, small cracks in her story. A photo of her team dinner showed everyone but Amanda. An online shopping receipt for men's cologne, one I didn't recognize. The tipping point came one Saturday afternoon. I was cleaning the bedroom when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She'd forgotten to take it with her. A message preview lit up the screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Babe, Nathan." Nathan. I didn't know a Nathan. My chest tightened as I stared at the message. My hands trembled, hovering over the phone. I wanted to read more, but I didn't. Not yet. I wasn't ready to face the truth. That night I said nothing. I lay beside her in bed, my heart pounding as she slept soundly next to me. The woman I had shared my life with, who I had trusted with my deepest fears and dreams, was hiding something or someone. I realized then that I couldn't confront her without proof. If she was lying to me, I needed to know the full extent of it. So I decided to play the long game. I would gather every piece of evidence I needed to unravel the truth. And when the time came, Amanda wouldn't see it coming. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. The old me, the trusting, naive husband, was gone. I knew Amanda was lying to me, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me any longer. I started small. I began paying closer attention to her schedule, tracking the work dinners and girls' nights she so casually mentioned. It wasn't hard. She had become predictable in her carelessness. Every Wednesday and Friday, she left the house dressed to kill, claiming she had late meetings. I never questioned her aloud, but I made note of every detail. The first real breakthrough came when I checked our shared bank account. Amanda was usually meticulous with money, but now there were charges that didn't add up. A luxury hotel downtown, high-end restaurants I had never heard of, a boutique shop that specialized in men's accessories. She had never been this reckless before, and it was almost as if she thought I wasn't paying attention. One Friday night, while Amanda was out, I made my move. I installed a small GPS tracker on her car, something I'd picked up earlier that week. It felt wrong, invasive even, but the weight of her betrayal crushed any guilt I might have had. The following Wednesday, I stayed home from work under the pretense of feeling unwell. Amanda left the house as usual, dressed in a crimson dress I'd never seen before. I waited 10 minutes after she pulled out of the driveway, then opened the GPS app on my phone. The little red dot representing her car moved steadily toward the city. I followed her, staying far enough behind so she wouldn't notice. My heart raced as I tailed her through the winding streets of downtown. She eventually parked in front of a sleek, modern building, the kind that screamed exclusivity. I watched from a distance as she stepped out of her car and was greeted by a man. He was tall, with a sharp suit and a smug grin that made my blood boil. He kissed her on the cheek as she laughed and touched his arm. "Nathan." I stayed in the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I felt a surge of rage, but also a sickening sense of relief. I had my answer. The truth was laid bare in front of me, and it hurt more than I had imagined. They entered the building together, and I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my mind racing with thoughts of confrontation, revenge, and despair. When they finally emerged hours later, their closeness was undeniable. She was smiling, looking at him the way she used to look at me. I drove home in silence, my head spinning. That night, I didn't say a word to Amanda when she returned. She acted as if nothing had happened, climbing into bed with a yawn and a casual, "Long day." But inside, something had shifted in me. I wasn't going to confront her yet. Not until I had everything I needed to destroy her lies completely. I would gather more evidence, plan every detail. And when the time was right, I would show her exactly what betrayal felt like. After that night, my mission became clear. I wasn't just going to confront Amanda. I was going to dismantle the illusion she had built, piece by piece. I couldn't let her walk away unscathed, not after what she had done to me. I began by collecting evidence, every hotel charge, every suspicious purchase, every detail I could find. I even created a secret folder on my computer, meticulously organizing photos, receipts, and screenshots of her messages. It was a painful process, but each discovery fueled my resolve. Amanda, oblivious to my suspicions, continued her routine. She seemed happier these days, her laughter more frequent, her movements lighter. It disgusted me. She wasn't just betraying me. She was thriving in her deceit. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching TV, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled, quickly setting it face down. I felt a wave of anger but forced myself to stay calm. Instead of confronting her, I leaned over and casually asked, "Work stuff?" She hesitated for a fraction of a second, just long enough for me to notice. "Yeah, just something from the team," she said, her voice smooth. Her lies were almost impressive. Almost. I decided to push my plan further. Using the GPS tracker, I began following her more frequently, noting every location she visited. Over the next few weeks, a pattern emerged. Amanda and Nathan had a routine: Wednesday dinners at a downtown restaurant, Friday nights at the hotel. It was sickeningly predictable, and yet, each time I saw them together, the pain hit just as hard. But I couldn't let the pain control me. I needed to stay focused. One night, I decided to take things a step further. I hired a private investigator to follow Amanda and capture everything. I knew it was extreme, but I wanted irrefutable proof. Something I could use to expose her lies to everyone: her friends, her family, even Nathan. The investigator delivered beyond my expectations. High-resolution photos, detailed reports, even a recording of Amanda laughing with Nathan at a cafe, saying how free she felt with him. Free. The word echoed in my mind like a cruel joke. In the meantime, I played my role perfectly. At home, I was the same devoted husband Amanda thought she had wrapped around her finger. I cooked her dinner, listened to her fabricated stories about work, and even smiled when she kissed me on the cheek before heading out for another meeting. But behind the mask, I was planning my next move. One Friday evening, while Amanda was out, I invited her best friend, Rachel, over for a drink. Rachel had always been close to Amanda, but she'd never been one to shy away from honesty. Over a few glasses of wine, I casually mentioned how distant Amanda had seemed lately. Rachel hesitated, then sighed. "Michael, I don't want to get involved, but I've noticed it too. She's been different." "Different how?" I asked, feigning concern. Rachel hesitated again, clearly torn. "I don't know, maybe it's just work stress. Or—" She trailed off, biting her lip. I nodded, letting her think I was just a worried husband. Planting seeds of doubt in Amanda's closest circle was just the beginning. If I could make her world crumble from the inside out, it would hurt more than any confrontation ever could. When Amanda came home that night, she was glowing, humming a tune as she slipped out of her heels. She didn't even notice the slight smirk on my face. She thought she was in control. But the game was only just beginning, and I was about to turn the tables. The cracks in Amanda's carefully curated life began to show not long after my conversation with Rachel. My subtle hints and carefully placed seeds of doubt were starting to take root. Her best friend, her colleagues, even her family, they all began noticing the inconsistencies in her stories. Started small. Rachel casually mentioned to Amanda during brunch how worried I seemed about her stress from work. Amanda, caught off guard, stumbled over an excuse, brushing it off as a misunderstanding. But Rachel wasn't convinced. Then there was her brother, Daniel, who called me one evening after Amanda had declined yet another family gathering. "She's been distant lately," he said. "Is everything okay between you two?" "She's been busy with work," I lied smoothly, knowing my words would only add to the growing web of doubt. Amanda, meanwhile, was oblivious to the unraveling threads around her. She was too wrapped up in her double life to notice the whispers starting to circulate. Nathan, her lover, seemed equally confident, his arrogance evident in every gesture and interaction I observed. But arrogance often leads to carelessness, and I was counting on that. One evening, Amanda came home later than usual, her hair slightly disheveled and her perfume heavier than normal. I greeted her as if nothing was wrong, but as she sat at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone, I casually asked, "How was the team dinner?" She didn't even flinch. "Good," she replied, not looking up. "Who all was there?" I pressed, keeping my tone light. "Just the usual people," she said, a slight edge creeping into her voice. That's when I dropped the first subtle blow. "Funny," I ran into Rachel earlier. She said she didn't know about the dinner. Amanda froze for a fraction of a second before quickly recovering. Oh, she must have been busy. It was last minute. Her answer was smooth, but the hesitation in her eyes gave her away. She was starting to realize that her stories weren't as airtight as she thought. The next day, I took things a step further. Using the investigator's photos and reports, I anonymously mailed a carefully curated package to Nathan's office. Inside were photos of him and Amanda at the hotel, along with a note. How much do you really know about her? I wasn't sure how he would react, but I knew it would sow doubt. Nathan might have been bold, but no man likes to think he's the only one being lied to. The fallout was immediate. Amanda came home that evening looking rattled, her phone glued to her hand. I watched her from the corner of my eye as she typed furiously, her expression a mixture of frustration and panic. She didn't mention anything to me, but her distraction was palpable. That night, as we lay in bed, I feigned sleep while she quietly slipped out of the room to take a call. Her voice was hushed, but I caught enough. "This is getting out of hand," she whispered. "We need to be more careful." Careful. The word filled me with a grim satisfaction. They were beginning to feel the pressure, and I hadn't even begun to play my final cards. By the end of the week, Amanda's once flawless facade was visibly cracking. Her stories no longer aligned, her once perfect lies becoming tangled and messy. I could see the strain in her eyes every time I asked a simple question or made a passing comment. But I didn't press too hard. Not yet. The cracks were just the beginning. Soon, the entire foundation would crumble, and I would be there to watch it all fall apart. The air in the house had shifted. Amanda was no longer the confident, self-assured woman she had been. Her usual poise was cracking, replaced by nervous glances and half-hearted smiles. She had started avoiding me, retreating to the guest room at night under the pretense of needing space. I let her think she was in control. One Friday evening, I decided it was time to escalate things. I invited Rachel over again, this time under the guise of a casual dinner. Amanda had conveniently forgotten to mention another work engagement, so it was the perfect opportunity. Over a bottle of wine, I began weaving the narrative I had been carefully constructing. "I don't know what's going on with Amanda," I confided to Rachel, my tone heavy with feigned concern. "She's been so distant. She's out late almost every night, and when I ask her about it, she gets defensive." Rachel hesitated, glancing down at her glass. "Michael, I've been meaning to talk to you about this. I didn't want to overstep, but I've noticed it too. She's not the same. It's like she's hiding something." I nodded, pretending to be conflicted. "Do you think she could be seeing someone else?" Rachel's eyes widened, and for a moment, she looked like she wanted to deny it. But then she sighed. "I don't know. I hate to even think that, but maybe, some of the things she says don't add up." Her words confirmed what I already knew. Amanda's lies were becoming harder to maintain. As Rachel left that evening, I could see the doubt in her eyes. It wouldn't take long for her to start piecing things together herself. And once she did, Amanda's closest confidant would become a liability. That night, I sat in the living room, waiting for Amanda to return. When she finally walked through the door, her face was pale, her eyes darting nervously. "You're home late," I said casually, not looking up from the book I was pretending to read. "Yeah, sorry," she mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "Everything okay?" "Just tired," she said, heading straight for the guest room. I watched her go, my heart pounding with a mixture of anger and anticipation. She was unraveling faster than I had expected, and I knew it was only a matter of time before she slipped up completely. The next day, I took another step in my plan. I anonymously sent copies of the photos and reports from the private investigator to her office, addressing them to Amanda herself. I wanted her to know that someone was watching, that her secret wasn't as safe as she thought. When Amanda came home that evening, she was furious. "Did you mess with my mail?" she snapped, her voice shaking. I looked at her, feigning confusion. "What are you talking about?" "Someone sent me something at work. Personal stuff. Pictures. I don't know who it was." I stood up, crossing my arms. Pictures of what? Her face flushed, and she looked away. It doesn't matter. Just forget it. But I didn't forget it. I could see the fear in her eyes, the panic creeping into her voice. She was losing control, and it was only the beginning. The final blow would come soon. I had all the pieces in place, the evidence, the witnesses, the perfect moment to reveal everything. All I had to do was wait for the right time to strike. The day I had been waiting for finally arrived. Amanda's office was hosting a formal dinner, a grand event with her colleagues, clients, and superiors in attendance. She had mentioned it in passing weeks ago, downplaying its importance, but I knew this was a significant evening for her. That morning, Amanda was unusually tense, pacing around the house as she got ready. She had chosen a stunning emerald green dress, one I had bought for her years ago but had never seen her wear. Her nervous energy filled the room as she applied her makeup in front of the mirror. "You look beautiful," I said, leaning against the doorway. "Thanks," she replied, not meeting my eyes. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, and she quickly snatched it up, her fingers flying across the screen. I knew who it was, Nathan. I had seen enough of their conversations to recognize the rhythm of their exchanges. "Big night," I said, my voice casual. "I hope everything goes smoothly." She glanced at me, her smile strained. "It will. Don't wait up, okay?" "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I said, watching her expression shift to confusion. "You're coming?" she asked, her tone a mixture of surprise and irritation. "Of course," I said, smiling. "I want to support you." She opened her mouth to protest but quickly shut it, clearly caught off guard. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, trying to figure out how to handle this unexpected development. That evening, I arrived at the venue just after Amanda, who had driven separately. The grand ballroom was filled with people, all dressed to the nines, the sound of clinking glasses and soft jazz creating an elegant atmosphere. Amanda was already mingling, her laugh too loud, her gestures exaggerated. She was performing, trying to keep up the facade. I stayed in the background at first, observing. Nathan was there, of course, dressed in a sharp suit, his hand brushing Amanda's back whenever he thought no one was looking. But I was looking. When the moment felt right, I made my move. The event's keynote speech had just ended, and the room was buzzing with conversation. I approached the microphone at the front of the room, my heart pounding but my resolve unshaken. "Excuse me, everyone," I said, my voice steady. The room fell silent, all eyes turning toward me. Amanda's face paled as she realized what was happening. "I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate my wife, Amanda," I began, my tone warm and sincere. "She's worked so hard to get here, and I couldn't be prouder." The crowd applauded politely, but Amanda's eyes were wide with panic. "And since we're all here to honor honesty and excellence," I continued, my voice hardening slightly, "I think it's only fair to share a little more about Amanda's journey." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a stack of photos, the ones the private investigator had taken. "Amanda has shown incredible dedication to someone else." I held up a photo of her and Nathan entering the hotel together. Gasps rippled through the room as I laid the photos on the podium one by one. Amanda's face was a mask of horror, her hands trembling as she tried to step forward. "Michael, stop!" she hissed, but I ignored her. "And Nathan," I said, turning toward him, "you've been a great partner, haven't you?" The room erupted into whispers and stares, some aimed at Amanda, others at Nathan, who stood frozen in shock. I stepped away from the microphone, the weight of the moment sinking in. Amanda's carefully constructed world was crumbling before her eyes, and there was no escape. Without another word, I walked out of the ballroom, leaving her to face the consequences of her lies. That night, as I sat alone in the quiet of our home, I felt a strange sense of calm. It wasn't joy or satisfaction, just the hollow relief of knowing the truth was finally out. But this wasn't the end. Amanda would have to face me soon, and when she did, I would make sure she understood exactly what she had lost. The days following the public exposure felt like a blur. News of Amanda's betrayal spread like wildfire, with people whispering in the office halls, on social media, and even in the circles of our friends. I hadn't expected her to react so violently, but she did. She came home that night with a fury I had never seen in her. I was sitting in the living room, sipping a glass of whiskey, when the door slammed open. Amanda stood in the doorway, her face flushed with rage, her eyes wild. "How could you do this?" she screamed, her voice breaking. "How could you humiliate me like that? You ruined everything." I remained calm, setting my glass down slowly. "You did that yourself, Amanda. You're the one who decided to lie, to cheat, to betray me." She took a few steps toward me, her breath shallow. "I didn't deserve this. I didn't deserve you airing my dirty laundry like that. I never asked for this." I stood up, facing her, and the coldness in my eyes made her falter. "You didn't deserve me, no. You deserve something much worse. But I was trying to be the good guy. I let you think you could have both worlds, that I wouldn't find out. But I did. Is this your revenge? Is this what you wanted?" Her voice wavered between anger and desperation. "To destroy everything?" I didn't answer immediately. My mind raced with memories of everything she had put me through. The countless lies, the betrayal, the gaslighting. For years, she had made me feel like I was the problem, like I was crazy for questioning her behavior. And now, standing before me, she was trying to twist the situation again. "I didn't destroy anything," I said calmly. "You did that all on your own. All I did was expose the truth." Amanda's face crumpled. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I shook my head. "You never meant for it to go this far? You've been lying to me for months, Amanda, and now you expect me to forgive you just like that." She collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "Please, don't leave me. Don't make me lose everything. I'm sorry." I stood over her, feeling an overwhelming sense of emptiness. There was no satisfaction in her apology, no sense of closure. She wasn't apologizing for me. She was apologizing because she was afraid of losing her comfort, her position, her status. "You've already lost everything, Amanda," I said softly. "Your marriage, your respect, your dignity. You lost all of it the moment you chose him over me." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. "I never meant for it to happen like this. I never wanted to hurt you." The words felt hollow, empty. She hadn't been thinking about me when she was with Nathan. She hadn't been thinking about the family we had built, the years we had spent together. I stepped back, letting out a slow breath. "You don't get to pretend this didn't happen. You don't get to make it about me, Amanda. This is your mess. You made it, and now you'll have to deal with it." I turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm. "Michael, please, don't go. I'll do anything. I'll change. I'll make it right." I shook her hand off, my eyes cold. "No, Amanda. You've had your chance to make it right, and you blew it. I'm done." I walked out of the room, leaving her sobbing on the couch. There was no turning back now. I had already made my choice, and it was a choice she had forced me to make. That night, I filed for divorce. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't seeking revenge or holding on to resentment. I was simply done. Amanda had shown me who she truly was, and I had no interest in being part of her lies any longer. The next morning, as I left for work, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't known in years. The weight of the past few months was finally lifting. There would be no more secrets, no more lies. I was walking away from the chaos, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. The divorce was finalized quickly. Amanda tried to fight it, but by then, her efforts were meaningless. She had already destroyed everything we had built, and I had no desire to salvage the wreckage. The moment I signed those papers, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. But even after the divorce, the emotional aftermath lingered. It wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was about the betrayal, the humiliation, the years of deceit. And despite how much I had planned, how much I had orchestrated everything to expose her, the truth was that part of me still hurt. The pain of having loved someone who was capable of such betrayal was something I couldn't shake easily. The first few days after the divorce were the hardest. My phone was flooded with messages. Some from friends offering their support, others from Amanda begging for another chance. I deleted each one without hesitation. Couldn't let her back in. I took some time off work to focus on myself, something I hadn't done in years. I threw myself into new hobbies, things that had once brought me joy but had been pushed aside for the sake of my relationship. I rediscovered my love for photography, spending hours walking through the city, capturing the beauty in the simplest things. It was therapeutic, calming. I also began to reconnect with people I had lost touch with. Friends I had pushed away during my marriage were there to support me, reminding me of who I was before Amanda came into the picture. I went out with them, shared laughs, and slowly, I started to heal. And then, a few months later, I met someone new. Her name was Emily, and she was different. I had never been one to rush into anything, especially not after everything that had happened with Amanda. But there was something about Emily's energy that was refreshing. She was kind, funny, and open, everything I had been craving during my marriage, but had never received. We spent time talking, getting to know each other, and for the first time in a long time I felt truly seen. There was no pressure, no expectations, just a natural connection. Felt like a rebirth. I knew it was too soon to jump into anything serious, but for the first time in ages, I felt hopeful about the future. I was no longer defined by the mistakes of my past or the pain Amanda had caused me. I was free. As for Amanda, she tried reaching out again, of course. She called, left messages, even showed up at my apartment. But I was firm. I had no interest in revisiting the past. I had given her more chances than she deserved, and I wasn't going to fall into the same trap again. She was broken, lost in her own mess, and as much as I once cared for her, I couldn't allow myself to be part of her chaos anymore. I had moved on. Life continued, each day bringing new challenges, but also new opportunities. I had learned that sometimes, letting go was the only way to move forward. The darkness that had once consumed me had faded, replaced by a light I hadn't known existed. And for the first time, I knew that I was finally free. It had been almost a year since the divorce was finalized, and life had settled into a rhythm I had grown accustomed to. The chaos of the past was nothing but a distant memory, and every day felt like a new opportunity to rebuild and reclaim what I had lost. But just when I thought I had left everything behind, Amanda resurfaced. It was late on a Saturday evening when I received the unexpected message. The text was simple: "We need to talk. Can you meet me tomorrow?" I stared at the message, uncertainty washing over me. After everything she had put me through, why would she reach out now? I had no desire to see her. The closure had already been achieved, and my life had moved on without her. But there was something about the message that left me restless. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was the lingering echoes of my past, but I decided to meet her. The next day, I found myself sitting in a small coffee shop, waiting. The sound of the espresso machine in the background did little to calm my nerves as I watched the door, my mind racing with questions. What did she want now? When she walked in, she looked different, tired, worn. Gone was the confident woman who once held all the power in our relationship. In her place was someone who seemed small, fragile even. She sat across from me, her hands trembling as she placed her cup down on the table. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I said nothing at first, letting the silence stretch between us. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? She broke the silence with a shaky sigh. "I know I have no right to ask for anything from you. After everything, I don't deserve your forgiveness. I've been a mess." She paused, glancing up at me through tear-filled eyes. "I've been looking at my life, and I realize I ruined everything. I ruined us." I leaned back in my chair, studying her. This was different. The apology felt genuine, but I couldn't tell if it was driven by remorse or desperation. "Why now, Amanda?" I asked quietly. "Why reach out after all this time?" Her shoulders sagged as she let out another sigh. "Because I'm not okay. I don't know who I am anymore. I've been trying to make everything work, to find some sense of stability, but nothing feels right. I thought I was happy with Nathan, but I was just fooling myself. And now, I don't even know how to fix it. I could see the cracks in her facade, the desperation in her eyes. But I also saw something else, a woman who had been exposed, broken by her own choices. "You never cared about what you were doing to me," I said, my voice cold but steady. "You never thought about the damage you caused. You tore everything apart for what? A moment of excitement." She flinched, her eyes welling up with tears. "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I didn't think about you. I didn't think about anything but myself." I could feel the old anger stirring inside me, but I forced it down. This wasn't about me anymore. It wasn't about seeking revenge or holding on to the past. It was about understanding that I had done what I needed to do, and now she had to face the consequences of her own actions. "You had your chance, Amanda," I said softly. "I gave you everything I had, and you chose someone else. I don't have anything left for you." The tears finally fell, and she wiped them away with the back of her hand. "I know. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I'm not asking for that. I needed you to know that I've realized what I've lost. And it's too late." I sat there in silence for a long moment, watching her struggle to hold herself together. The woman in front of me wasn't the one I had once loved. She was a shadow of her former self, and no matter how much she begged for redemption, I knew the damage had been done. "I'm sorry, Amanda," I said, standing up, "but I'm not the person you need anymore. I'm not the person I was back then. I've moved on." She didn't try to stop me as I walked away. There was nothing left to say. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. The past had already been written, and I had closed that chapter. I walked out of the coffee shop, the weight of the past finally lifting. Amanda was no longer a part of my story, and as much as she regretted her decisions, there was no turning back. The next step in my journey had already begun, and I was finally free to take it. It's strange, isn't it? How life can change in an instant, how everything you thought you knew about yourself can be turned upside down. But in the aftermath, after all the destruction, the lies, and the pain, you find something you never thought you would: peace. I spent so long in the chaos, fighting, trying to understand why Amanda did what she did, why she chose betrayal over loyalty, love over deceit. But as the days turned into weeks, then months, I realized something important. The answers didn't matter. The truth didn't need to be explained to me anymore. What mattered was the person I had become. I was no longer the man I had been when I walked into that marriage. I wasn't broken, defeated, or weak. I was stronger, more self-aware, and most importantly, I was free. I had rebuilt myself, piece by piece, from the wreckage she left behind. Every photograph I took, every laugh shared with friends, every moment spent in my own company was a reminder that I could survive. I could thrive even after everything. And then there was Emily. She was different from Amanda in so many ways, but more than that, she was everything I had been searching for: genuine, kind, and real. I didn't need her to fix me. I didn't need her to save me. But she brought light into my life, and that was something I could appreciate. But Emily was also a reminder of how far I had come. I wasn't desperate anymore. I wasn't clinging to someone just to fill the void. I wasn't settling. I was choosing to be happy, choosing to be loved, choosing to love in return. Amanda, on the other hand, remained lost in her own mistakes. She had apologized. She had begged for forgiveness, but none of it mattered. I had let go, and when I looked back on our time together, I didn't see the woman I had once loved. I saw a stranger, someone who had betrayed not just me, but herself. There was no satisfaction in her suffering. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to watch her struggle. But I also knew I couldn't be the one to help her fix it. That was her journey, and it wasn't mine to walk anymore. I often think about the choices I made, the decisions that led me here. And while I still have moments of anger and hurt, I've learned to let them go. They don't define me. What defines me is how I moved forward, how I kept going, even when everything seemed to be falling apart. And now, as I sit here, looking at the life I've built from the ashes, I realize something important. The past doesn't define who I am. It's what I choose to do with the present, with the future, that shapes me. Amanda will always be part of my story, but she doesn't control it anymore. I do. Thank you for following this journey with me. If you've been through something similar, if you've faced betrayal, or if you've found the strength to rebuild after a broken relationship, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to leave a comment, share your story, and subscribe for more stories about resilience, redemption, and moving forward. Life is about choices, and it's never too late to choose happiness.